Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I want to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. And I also want to pay my respects to elders, past and present. I want to thank my co-panelists for their presentations. I loved how Dr. Kapoor drew that common thread between South Africa and Australia, and the common thread being Indians. Sorry, my presentation seems to have a mind of its own. So I'm going to be handling a topic, and if you don't mind, I'll wander a little bit because I think better when I wander. The topic is artificial intelligence within our field, which is SIPTED and Safecities. And artificial intelligence is such a big thing, and I don't think that I can cover it all in 15 minutes. But as a grieving All Blacks supporter, I'm expecting Tinnis to tackle me off the stage at 14 minutes and 59 seconds, so I'll be watching. By the way, for those that don't know, the Springboks beat the All Blacks at the World Cup finals last weekend. Yeah. So AI is not a new thing. It's been around, at least in the modern era, for quite some time. And within the context of what we're talking about today, there were publications as far back as the 1940s, and certainly the birth of AI is attributed to the event at Dartmouth, which is in 1956, the research project there, which actually brought together a team of multidisciplinary scientists to actually achieve that end. And I think to some extent, there is a parallel here because we come from many different disciplines coming to this field and trying to provide safer cities being the outcome. So the area that I'm going to talk about is generative AI. So it's not artificial intelligence in general, it's a subset of artificial intelligence. And generative AI, how many of you have heard of ChatGPT? Show of hands, yeah. If you have heard of it, that's generative AI. And what it is it's, and that was what really made it popular, the release in December last year. And within 5 days, it had 1 million users. Because all of a sudden, people could post natural language queries. So you ask it a question in natural spoken language, it gives you not a list of search results, but it gives you an answer to your question in natural language. So this was quite fascinating to people. And obviously, you started to see a lot of its use. Writers and journalists saw it as an opportunity to not do any work and essentially get the AI to write the article for them. In some cases, as you'll see with this one, the journalist actually forgot and left the prompt within the article, and that got published. So there are things that you shouldn't do. And obviously within academic circles, claiming credit for work that you haven't done is unethical. And again, this person got caught out because they left a prompt within their submitted article. So I want to tackle a few misconceptions, try and understand a little bit, because I also come from an engineering background, and I think if architects are an unusual species and engineers within SIPTED circles are endangered, so I think it does behoove us, though, to look a little bit deeper under the hood in terms of how generative AI works, and that will help us understand better how to use it and when not to use it. So during my talk today and the examples that I present, I will be using ChatGPT, which is owned by OpenAI and DALL-E. But there are many others as well, products available in the market, and there's many others being developed. So there's generative AI for all sorts of questions, and then there's specialist ones being developed by certain industries, certain subsections of academia, tackling specific subjects, but there's also private GPTs being developed by organizations that don't want to share their information with everyone else. So, a little bit of the under the hood stuff, right? So GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformers, and these models work through a set of layered or a large number of neural networks and self-attention mechanisms. And these neural networks are effectively interconnected nodes that collect information, they estimate, and they also make decisions. So in other words, it's a machine learning network that's actually making predictions and helping to make decisions. And that's, I know it's very technical for this audience, but it does help to put things into context when we go a bit further. So very simply, again, from a layperson's perspective, the generative pre-trained model has a learning data set. So in other words, you expose it to a training corpus or a lot of text input generally. Obviously with image, it's image input. You, as the user, you pose a natural language query or a question. So the question is in the way you would speak or write, and then it will give you an answer in natural language. So with GPT models, there's a couple of points that we should make, that it is predicated on natural language processing, and it requires you to understand that in order to use it effectively. So it's not a search engine. Okay, search engines are a little bit different, and the way you use it is different as well. The other feature about GPT models is that they are autoregressive, and what that means is that when they are generating the answer, every token that is generated, and you can think of tokens as a word, but there are also subwords and values, but every word that is or every token that is generated is actually predicated on the previous token and also on the input query or the question. Okay, what that means is that when it is generating a sentence, the neural network is actually working out what is the probability that the next word in the sentence is this. And it evaluates whatever has the highest probability, it sticks that word in the sentence. That in itself is mind-blowing because it's not intelligence. A lot of people think that this is sentient intelligence and the neural network or the GPT model is actually feeling this and giving me this response. It's mathematical. It's estimation. And what's making that possible is just the massive compute behind it. And what's made it possible in 2022 is the availability of that computation to allow it to be done. Because neural networks have been known for many decades. Okay, so that's the technical side. And I'm because we have only 15 minutes, we have 5 minutes left. Whoa, okay, so I'm not going to go into any of that. So I'm going to skip past a lot of it, but one thing that I will note is that with the training data set, it is important to understand that every model and the effectiveness of the model is completely dependent on the training data set. So if you feed rubbish into the training model, it'll give you rubbish out, rubbish in, rubbish out. But also what that means is that there is also a possibility that the data set can be biased, and you have to be aware of that when you use this. The other thing which with GPT-4 is no longer an issue is that with GPT 3.5, for example, there was an issue of a cutoff date where it had all of the information up to a certain point. I think it was 2021. The other point to note, and we'll talk a little bit about this later if I have time, is copyright. The way these models learn is they basically scrape websites and they collect information from any source they can find, even if these sources are copyright or behind paywalls. So it's basically just picking up information from everywhere. In terms of biases, I think there is a strong bias at the moment for English-speaking viewpoints. And obviously, in your context, that would be important when you use GPT to generate any answers, is that there is a bias in the training data towards that. The other thing which I'll mention quickly before I move on is that there is also a general absence of the rare cases, right? And that's where expert opinion is so important. So again, just understanding that it's how long do I have? 3 minutes, thank you. Understanding that it's a prediction engine, you also have to be aware that it is prone to this phenomenon called hallucinations. Because the GPT model provides you an answer in perfect written form, in perfect syntax, grammar, and authority, you are conditioned to kind of accept that as the truth. But sometimes it has no idea what it's talking about. And that's where experts again come in to, immediately dismiss that. This was an interesting case where a judge actually threw out a lawsuit brought by these lawyers because the GPT model that they used to generate the case references were completely fictitious. Okay, so very, very quickly, what is giving you a scale and speed? And the answers that you can get, it is an excellent editor of information. You can upload your writing into it because we write and think in unstructured thoughts. It's brilliant and very quick at producing, a written summary of everything that you've said. It can also write introductions, conclusions for you. One of the big uses from a CIPTED perspective is in brainstorming. For example, if you're looking at stakeholders in a security workshop, and I'm going to skip through this because I'll show you real examples of what I've done. So I've come up with a hypothetical childcare center in Sao Paulo, and I've said to it, look, I'm building this in the CBD of Sao Paulo. Give me a list of all the stakeholders, the security stakeholders that I should interview, and all the security stakeholders that I should have at my workshop. So you can see that it's given me a full list there. And this list, by the way, is generated in seconds. If you try to do this yourself, it'll take you, a couple of hours of research, then another couple of hours of writing and formatting and everything. But this is all done, literally in less than 5 seconds. Similarly, you can ask it, okay, once I've got these stakeholders, so you can see the prompts up the top there. So I'm actually having a dialogue with it. So it remembers what it said before and what I've asked it before. And now I'm kind of building the context and saying, okay, now that I've got my stakeholders, what questions can I ask them? And these are the questions it suggests. Again, this is brainstorming. These are ideas, right? So you as the expert can kind of accept or reject it. But the speed at which you can do it is now completely different. It's no longer half a day to get this done. It's, literally 20 seconds. Okay, so another new feature which has just come out is data analysis. Through GPT-4, you can actually provide it with files that have statistics or even PDF documents, text, etc. Ask it to analyze it, provide you summaries, provide you insights. So again, this is a case study for a childcare in Blacktown, LGA. I took the crime statistics that are available to us in Australia, stuck it in there. The file wasn't perfect, but it actually went through it, as you can see here, and it restructured the file. And it gave me an answer saying, look, these are, for a childcare center, these are the crime categories, these are the incidents, this is what you should be looking at. But I said, hang on, you've just given me your opinion based on number of incidents, what's happening in terms of trend, what's happened over the past 60 months. So again, you have to be intelligent with the way you use it. You can't just accept everything it gives you, right? So then it comes back to me and says, look, okay, now that you've said that, you can look at these specific categories. Sorry, I'm going through very, very quickly. The last one is architectural plans. You can even upload an architectural plan. And this is where I kind of said to it, look, I'm building a childcare center. That's my architectural plan. You will note that I sanitized the plan. I removed all client information and anything else from that. And that was actually a defunct plan anyway by that stage. But I did this for the case study's sake, and it's gone through the plans and it's identified blind corners for me. And again, some of these might not be fully accurate, but again, because it's given me this in 10 seconds, you know, I have nothing to lose by going through it and using it. So I've then gone to it and said, okay, given all of this, what additional security measures should I employ? It's given me a few. And then, interestingly, I said, okay, given all of that, I'm now moving this childcare center to Sao Paulo CBD. What measures would you now recommend? So you can see how it's changed its measures. And they seem pretty accurate, but I'm not an expert in this geography. So again, I'd go to the expert locally and say, hey, what do you think of this? But it's interesting that it's brought up, you know, some of the crime categories that weren't there before. Okay, so in summary, generative AI, it's brilliant for editing, summarizing, brainstorming, data image analysis, but it also generates images. And the nice thing about these images is that, at least at the moment, they're copyright free. So you can sort of give it a prompt like that, and it threw up 2 images for me on Safecities in Sao Paulo. So that I thought was pretty cool. Now, I just want to end by asking a question. You know, it's a tool that will boost your efficiency and also your effectiveness as SIPTED practitioners. But if you take the lazy route and sort of say, look, write a SIPTED report for me, it will write a SIPTED report for you. But my question is that SIPTED report better than the one you would produce? If the answer is true, then you've got a problem with how you're approaching SIPTED reporting, right? Because what we bring is real-world context. We bring stakeholder engagement. We bring the human element. That can't be replaced by generative AI. You might say, oh no, but you know, if you pair it with drones that go out and give it the real world context, and if you have chatbots, then do all the stakeholder engagement, that covers it, right? So my chatbot as the security consultant talks to Tinis's chatbot as the architect, and we've got stakeholder engagement. All right, I think I just want to say that there are risks, obviously, and there's a lot of people calling for regulation, and there's a big move in this area to regulate this space. There is an act being debated in the EU for introduction of some standards for this. China's published some generative AI guidelines in July this year. So regulation is coming, but I think it'll always be in catch-up mode. So as far as walking the ethical tightrope, working out how we use it effectively, and how we protect our clients' data and privacy, these are all considerations that we have to take as we use this new technology. But I think it would be very foolish if we dismiss it and say, no, I'm not going to use it at all, because it does have some very, very big strengths that can change the way we work. And also, I think more importantly, in the effectiveness of the outcomes that we deliver. So I just want to end with one maxim, which I think applies equally to life as it does to this presentation, that if you are seeking better answers, then we as a collective need to learn to ask better questions. Thank you.